Shalom. Welcome to Eretz Israel. We're here on the mountainside in Ayin. As you can see all around, we've got a little bit of sundown coming. I'm here in the valley of Elah, the famous valley where King David fought off Goliath. And I'm playing with this little walkie stick. But we've been learning Torah 21 in our Patreon classes daily. We've gotten towards the end of the Torah. We've got a sikum, a summation of many of the ideas we've been learning for quite a while. And I wanted to share them with you on this amazing view. I was hoping we'd have a little sun left in the sky, but it's hiding behind the clouds. Well, that's okay. But the basic ideas that the Rebbe's been teaching us in Torah 21 really spell out the redemption of the human being, the redemption of the mind, the redemption of all of humanity, and not just the Jewish people, each person at their level. So he explains how it works like this. The essential redemption is the Dat Hashem, to know God. But to know God doesn't just mean we all know God, which is a tremendous level, which is one level. But it's also Dat Hashem, to know what God knows, to look at the world the way He looks at the world, to look at nature the way God looks at the world, to look at people with the same heart that God looks at the world. So you see, the Dat Hashem, that phrase can be translated in many different ways. So when each person receives Dat Hashem, he says that's going to be what we call Ki Mala Ha'aretz Dat Hashem, the world, the land will be filled with the knowledge of God, Kayam Kamayim Liyam Mechasim, like the water covers the earth. Now what does that mean? Well, Das is compared to water. Knowledge, the awareness of God, is compared to water, like the sea. Now the Rebbe says there's a Sechel Mishutaf, he calls it, the partnered Das, the partnered awareness, where everybody has the same basic idea that there is a God, and that the Jewish story is not just a story, it is God's attempt to fix all of humanity. And we all have that awareness. But he says the sea has that equivalent level. It's everywhere you go, the sea is basically the same level. But of course, everywhere you go, the sea is not the same depth. And the depth of the Yam varies greatly according to every meter that you cross on the seabed. So that is equivalent to every person's umkot ahochma, the depth of their wisdom. So depth of wisdom and knowing God are not the same thing. But we're all going to know Hashem, and we're all going to have a certain amount of wisdom in that knowledge. And so this knowledge redeems us from all the dark places, because that's the way knowledge is. It's like water. It enters wherever you let it enter. And if you don't stop the water, it's going to get in. So that's basically, in a very large picture, what's happening to the human race is the knowledge of God is coming on like water. If you ever watch those movies of a wave coming over the land, it comes in very slow, but it keeps coming and it keeps spreading and it keeps spreading. And so too the knowledge of God, that everybody's going to know at a certain point that there is one God, that there is one Torah, and that there is one nation that was given the job of sharing that information with the rest of the world. So here we are on Erev Bedikat Chametz, the night before the checking for the little leftover pieces of bread, which of course are really little leftover pieces of our ego, of our arrogance. We want to find all those and get rid of them and burn them as fast as we can, because if we don't burn those pieces of our arrogance, we won't be able to receive the redemption in the same way. And so that's the work tonight. And then tomorrow, of course, Erev Shabbat. And then after Erev Shabbat, we have Motzi Shabbat. We have on Saturday night, we have, of course, the beginning of Pesach. And so here on the mountainside, you can see below me some houses that are going up. And you hear behind, perhaps you can hear the muazzin, the different Arab prayer leaders doing their thing. Some of them are better than others, as I've been told by those who know the makamim, the musical songs of the Muslims. But nonetheless, this idea of everybody is going to have the knowledge. Everybody's going to know. and there's not going to be war. And the Rebbe says an amazing thing. He says, when we have that knowledge, we're not going to get angry anymore. And he says, when we're not going to get angry anymore, we're not going to sin anymore. And when we don't sin anymore, every part of creation will be elevated to the level that we had before the fall. Ultimately, that level means that we will have the level of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And the people that didn't do the work, well, they're going to have a new level. But they're not going to have the level that the people who did the work are. And then even, he goes on to describe that the animal kingdom will be lifted up to a more human level. And even the plant kingdom will be more sentient and more aware, and even the mineral kingdom. So all 4 kingdoms of the physical realm will be lifted up by this transformation of dot, of knowledge. And so each of us is doing what we can do to expand that knowledge. But the main way we do it is by acquiring the knowledge of Hashem in our everyday lives through the Torah, and through especially the Torah, Rabbi Nachman says, of the tzaddik, of Moshe Rabbeinu, because he's the collection of all the pieces of dot. You see, each person has his own dot. The tzaddik of all the tzaddikim contains all of them in one mind. And each generation has that tzaddik that has all those pieces of dot, and he puts them together. So when you receive from him, you're receiving from the collective mind. And when you receive from the collective mind, then you get a connection to all those pieces of knowledge. So you'll know things that you knew you didn't know. And you will learn things that you know you never learned. And it'll become apparent to you things that were hidden from you. And that's called, the transcendent intellect becomes pinimi, it goes internal. That what used to be outside us, our knowledge, becomes part of our knowledge. And this is a miraculous process. And he says, at that time, called tzaddik v'tzaddik yechveh mechupato shel havero. Every righteous person will be burnt and inflamed and enthused by the light of his friend. Because you're not only going to know that you're different, you're going to have a new level, you're going to see everybody else's soul. And their souls are going to illuminate you. And your soul is going to illuminate them. So each person is going to be giving over a part of himself to others just by shining out into the world as who you are. You won't even have to say anything, and who you are will shine and precede you wherever you go. And so that's a miraculous process into itself. And as that happens, people are not going to get angry. People are not going to be upset. People are not going to go to war. People are not going to fight for each other's piece of bread. And people are not going to be jealous. And that's really what the whole Messianic vision is about. It's not about a fantastic, magical Disneyland of reality. It's about living the way we're supposed to live, the way we once lived, in a primordial perfection and purity. It's going to come here into this physical realm. So, we just have to hang on and do the best we can, but we need to be attached to the righteous. We need to learn their Torah. We need to receive those new intellects that we have yet to have through their work. And as we reach out into places we have yet to know, which are called the makifim, these transcendental levels, the things that you didn't know, as you learn them, all of a sudden, your mind becomes a receptacle to receive more and more and more. And as your awareness grows, your heart gets inflamed with love, with compassion, with understanding. And it's not like you get smarter and more arrogant. You get smarter and more loving and more understanding. And this is certainly something that's, it's worth waiting for sure. So I want to bless everyone to have an easy Leil B'dikah, that should find all those crumbs of pride and ego that need to go, and fill ourselves with the pride of God, and the pride of the righteous, and the pride of the Torah. Because that's the real pride. It's not personal at all. It's about being part of something so much greater than ourselves. So we're going to continue our daily learning on Patreon, on Rebbe Nachman, and this Torah, and all the others, because our goal is to finish all 400 and something Torahs, and it's been a 2-year project, and we're into our 3rd year, so we're not going to stop until the work is done. And maybe the work is never done, because that's the nature of infinity. We're always growing closer. So I want to bless all of you to grow closer, to receive those new awarenesses that we didn't have before. And there's so much wisdom contained within the Hasidic philosophy, the Kabbalistic understanding, and even the Pshat understanding of the way the Torah tells us to live our lives. It will protect and project and fix all that needs to be fixed. And we'll get our minds back. And we won't be controlled by anybody, not the media and not our bosses and not the fake leaders, and we will only know God by knowing our own hearts. So God bless you all. Hag Sameach, and we'll see you again on all the platforms. All the best. I'll let you enjoy the view a little bit more without me. I think you can see a little fragment of sun back there in the distance. And you remember King David beat Goliath out there somewhere a long time ago, but it's still alive for us. All the best.